Welcome to the Working with Subject Matter Experts podcast. If you're responsible for keeping your business profitable into the future, you need to be a learning organization. So here at the Working with Subject Matter Experts podcast, we talk about managing organizational knowledge to keep your business strong. I'm your co-host, Nathan Eckel, and we have right here with us Peggy Salvatore, your host. How are you, Peggy?
I'm fine today. How are you, Nathan?
I'm doing good. We are really excited about this topic for our podcast here today because we're talking about the missing component, the thing that almost every corporation, every industry, every number two, number three person or company in the market is missing, and that is actually the missing component. Actually, I don't know. I just see a missing component. Fill us in here, Peggy.
Oh, and so it's my job to answer that question.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I think it's a good thing to start with a statistic that a lot of business succession plans fail. There is a really high rate of failure in small businesses and family-owned businesses, but there's a pretty high rate of failure even in large corporations. So what is going on there? And I think we touched on it a little bit in our last podcast, so if anybody wants to go back and listen to last week when we talked about succession planning. But the missing component sometimes is being prepared and putting supports around the right people who are coming in by making sure all the people around them are prepared to support them. That usually is not part of the plan. And again, something you and I have referred to earlier, both of us were presidents of a similar organization in our prior lives. And we found that when you step aside and the next person comes in, you really do lose any authority or ability to fix anything. You've got to leave behind something that is sustainable. And that, I think, can be applied to anything. So I think one of the big reasons you have such an abysmally high rate of failure in succession planning is that those supports around the new leaders are rarely there.
For sure. So it shouldn't be analogous to a boxing match. In other words, when you bring somebody in that's new, it should be a little smoother than that.
It should be, but it isn't always. And, and you find it, especially in family businesses. I almost am reluctant to bring this up, but it is such an important topic and it's so sensitive, is that succession planning in family businesses, they rarely go beyond 2 and 3 generations because the founder, it might be dad or grandpa, and he had a great vision and he was passionate. He got this business going, but it's not often that the kids either share the passion or the vision or even the knowledge and expertise. Maybe grandpa was a brilliant engineer and developed some magnificent product or process, and the grandkids might not have that fire in the belly. They might not have that education. They might have gone on to be artists or something. So you don't have that in the family. And families, however, even with that problem or that disparity in the following generations, families rarely want to let go of the reins. They still want to control the family business. And some of the best transitions happen when they bring somebody in from the outside who really knows the business and can assess those supports and make sure that the thing can continue.
Absolutely.
It's a huge issue.
So, this is a great segue and a great general introduction to succession planning, but that's not really why we're here with the Working with Subject Matter Experts podcast. We got to go deeper, and we're really here to talk about that niche of knowledge transfer. And so you advocate in your book, Finding Your SMEs. You talk about knowledge transfer being just as much of the piece of the succession planning as other traditional forms of succession planning. Why is that? Why is knowledge so important and vital for an effective succession plan?
I'm really glad you mentioned this because I get a lot of questions about this. In the small businesses, how important is this knowledge capture, this learning organization, making sure that you have a strong learning process in place? Some small businesses take for granted that knowledge is just transferred person to person, or, oh, we know that, we don't have to write it down. Well, guess what? You need to write it down. And so this is actually very important. In fact, for the smaller businesses, it's critical because a lot of times financially even they don't have the leeway to make expensive mistakes or to make mistakes that will put them too far behind the eight ball.
So what are a few things that we can do, maybe just expectation wise? If I'm a CEO, if I'm a president of a board of directors or a chairman of a board of directors of a small or medium sized company, what are some things that person who's listening to us right now can do to really up-level their traditional succession plan with the knowledge enhancement and the knowledge succession that really everything rises and falls upon?
Excellent question. The Finding Your SMEs methodology is a series of filters to help you walk through your organization and look at everything that is your critical knowledge and your competitive advantage, why the customers come to you, what it is that your customers are paying for, maybe why they're paying a premium price for your product. You start asking yourself all those questions, and I said there are a series of filters that you run your organization through. This process is just as relevant for a small organization of even 10 or 15 people as it is of a 50,000 person global organization. The only difference is if you have a small company and real estate, let's say 200 person engineering firm, for example, you might only have to run this exercise once or twice through, you only have to run the organization through this series of filters once or twice to pretty much catch everything. But if you have a global corporation of 50,000 people, you may be running this exercise at different sites, in different divisions, in different units. So really it's a matter of degree, but the process is the same. So does that help explain how to solve that problem?
Well, sure. And actually, I'm going to just spell it out for anybody that's listening to this and saying, hey, I've got that problem. Hey, we've got to nip this in the bud. We've got to overhaul our system. Well, it's really easy when you get a copy of Peggy's book. It's pretty much free, $20 free compared to doing anything else. Get it while it's small. Get it now. Get that book. And you want to turn into that book because that filter system that you so brilliantly laid out is just chapters 4 through 6 in the book. And just being able to apply that is going to put you in such a better situation and such a better position of strength so that you don't have to utilize some of the more expensive options after people walk out the door with the knowledge. And either life happens or they retire and they don't come back in, or at least if you're lucky, they don't come in for the same price as we've talked about before. Peggy, back to you. But I mean, what you came up with chapters 4, 5, and 6, I wish that I had been able to articulate that, a year or so before when I come up with that book that you had found me from. My gosh, it's all in there.
Yeah, it comes from, just like you and anyone else who's written a book, it comes from a lifetime of experience of watching what's happening and walking away sometimes from certain projects after they're finished. And I frequently do an after-action review myself with the different projects I do, and I say, what happened there? And if you do that long enough, you begin to see, well, why was that project why were they losing $1 million a day in product because of poor manufacturing processes, or why were we $3 million behind on that project? What kind of decisions were being made that caused that to happen? And so those after action reviews really led to this process, because I am really, really cheap. And I can't stand to see people waste money. And I have seen so many millions and millions and millions of dollars wasted in corporations that are chasing the wrong thing or just not executing efficiently, shall we say. That I think there are ways to solve this problem without spending a fortune and meanwhile saving a fortune.
Absolutely, and I'm the same way. You hate waste, and so do I, and that's why we try to help people through packaging our knowledge into these systems that really create solutions and ways out of the maze of what this can be. So, thank you so much for sharing with us how knowledge transfer really is an integral part of succession planning. I want to invite everybody, if you like this, you're going to want to jump right back in for the next episode where we talk about effective succession planning. So we're going to continue this conversation, and we're going to talk about a little bit more proactive things we can do now that we are off of the baseline of knowledge transfer really being foundational to this. So we'll see you next time. This has been the Working with Subject Matter Experts podcast.